Hi everyone, super excited to have you guys back for another bonus episode for our 26 Days to Greatness Challenge. Today with us, we have Dr. Rhoberta Shaler, who is a relationship help doctor who provides urgent and ongoing care for her clients around their relationship crisis. She provides information, insights, and inspirations on how we can transform the relationships with ourselves and with other people in an honest, safe, and respectful way. So, Dr. Rhoberta, we are so excited to have you on here, and thank you so much for your time.
Oh, it's my pleasure.
Awesome. So, today I'm really excited to dive in to talk about why relationships with ourselves is so important when it comes to us connecting with others, our relationships with other people, and how we can even show up powerfully to tap into our greatness. But before we get into that, why don't you give us a little bit more about your background, a story about you, and how did you get to where you're at today?
Well, my particular field is working with the partners, exes, and adult children of people who are toxic. And I trademarked a term for those people so that people wouldn't go to the internet and say, my mother or my partner behaves this way. And then they would think about the internet as being a psychological professional, which I am. So I wanted people to have a way to talk about these things without a clinical diagnosis they were unable and unequipped to make. So I trademarked the term hijackals, and hijackals are people who hijack relationships for their own purposes and then relentlessly scavenge them for power, status, and control. So how I got to my specialty, Miko, is that I was raised in a home with two hijackal parents, and I'm an only child. So my whole way of looking at the world could have been terribly skewed, and of course was emotionally. But really, when you understand that, and I did at a young age, I would look at them and go, this is not right. You guys are nuts. The way you talk to each other, the way you behave is just like mind-bogglingly inappropriate. So I was on my way to medical school, and I found out that I was pregnant with my first child. I said, oh, I can't take a child to medical school. That's not fair. So I switched and got a doctorate in psychology, and then slowly over time moved into my specialty with the hijackals. And so I see clients all around the world, and my podcast and YouTube channel are very, very well received.
Oh, I love that term, hijackals. Like, it is catchy. And do you mind repeating that definition again? Like hijacking relationships for, I didn't get the
Their
rest.
own purposes. That's the important piece. They do it for their own purposes, to make themselves look and feel good, to gain something from you. And then they relentlessly scavenge the relationship for power, status, and control.
Ooh, that is toxic, just the sound of that. So my question is really like I want to dive deeper into this topic, and I feel like a lot of our listeners can really relate to this of one relationship or the other in the environment. But what really led to someone to becoming a hijackal? Like, how did that even happen?
Well, two ways. Generally, two ways. There are other rarer ways, but two ways. First of all, they were raised in a family where that was the only way that they could emotionally survive, that they learned that that was the only thing that would get them validation or approval. When you have a hijackal parent, you will only be validated for breathing if you agree with the parent, or you make the parent look good, or you're in service to that parent. So that will do one of two things. If you side with them and you want to be like them, that will create that. And if you are in the how do I please them mode, and you become overly people pleasing as a result, and then you will become in your later life what I call hijackal bait. That means that hijackals will see you as already pre-groomed and they will leap in and say, oh, I don't have to teach you how to let me control you. So that happens. So first is the trauma of being in a family like that. And then for a tiny percentage of these people, and I want to make it very, very clear, because basically what we're talking about are people with traits, patterns, and cycles that fall into the area of personality disorders. So there is very tiny, of all the people who are diagnosed with personality disorders, only 4% of those people fall into this category, but that tiny percent of people are actually born with different DNA material that leads to that. And even with those people, if they happen to be in a loving, wonderful home, it may or may not show up.
So this is powerful, and I can imagine like this is so common, but at the same time, like not all of us have this awareness that we are in this toxic like relationship or environment. So how does that affect us when we are connected or in a relationship with a hijacker? Like how does that influence us in all aspects of our lives?
Well, if you're in a relationship with a new person, not your family, and you have been raised by a hijackal, and one of those two things I just mentioned happened, then you are going to be overly passive. You are going to want to please them. You are going to be a good person, basically, and say, oh, well, this person's having trouble. Oh, they had a troubled childhood. Oh, I understand their trauma. And then if you happen to be a woman, particularly, we are biologically hardwired to nurture and nourish and love and take care of. So we go overboard with narcissistic tendencies in men to say, oh, well, this poor dear, they've never been loved. If I just love them so much, if I am pliable, if I'm patient, if I am quiet, if I do all of these things, eventually they'll feel loved enough and then we'll be fine. No, it doesn't work like that. So it shows up in your life if you meet one of these people as either you immediately just go and you see every red flag, right? But most people don't. They think, oh, that's interesting. And then what a hijackal does when you meet them is they do what we call love bombing. They read you like a book. And so they can be your soulmate. They know what turns you on and floats your boat and makes you happy. And they say all the right things. They do all the right things. They show up. But here's a caveat. You meet somebody who's in a hurry. Somebody who says, oh, I know we just met, but I love you and we're going to be together forever. Or why don't we move in together? That would be a really good thing to do. What they're trying to do is to get you. You know, there's a few graphics on Facebook. One of them I love. It says, nobody falls in love faster than a narcissist who's lost his job or has no place to stay. So they will take advantage of you. They will take advantage of you with this love bombing because they want you to become part of their supply. Hijackals need supply. They need to be validated by having a lot of people they can control. So that's why they're seldom able to keep their wandering eye in check. They're always got a few other people that they're grooming or they're chatting up or maybe even having an affair with and denying it. But they always have to have supply because they have such deficit inside themselves. They need that supply to have somebody validating them all the time, even though they won't validate others, except when they do what they want.
So, you know, Dr. Rhoberta, I'm someone who really believes that we also like as each other, we have the personal responsibility for the way that we show up when it comes to attracting different people that come into our lives. So like if we are connecting, if we find ourselves connecting with like a hijacker right now, or, you know, even somewhere down the future, we meet one of those and we get into a relationship with them. So like what about myself that led to that situation? Were there certain characteristics that I embody that attracted that kind of connection?
Well, we were talking earlier about the work that you have to do within yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And if you notice there's a pattern here, and there usually is,
Mm-hmm.
I have clients all over the world, and it doesn't matter culturally, this still exists in every culture that I've spoken with. The thing is, you're pre-programmed to put up with bad behavior. So you have to get in touch with yourself and say, okay, what is it about me that is overly accepting of bad behavior? Is there something within me that doesn't feel I have the right or the strength to set and hold boundaries?
Yeah.
Let me work on that, because that's a very important piece. Some people don't even realize that no is a complete sentence. If somebody says, would you like to do this? And no, I wouldn't.
Mm-hmm.
And they think, oh, well, we've got this cultural thing. I'm from Canada, so we have it even more, even though I live in San Diego. We have it even more, which kind of sounds like this in your head. Someone wants me to do something I don't want to do. So somehow I have to come up with an excuse why I don't want to do what they want me to do to make them happy and that they will buy. And the actual answer is just smile and say, thank you, but no.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you may not have the strength to do that. You may have to strengthen that muscle to allow yourself to do that. And then you have to know that you deserve to take up space and draw breath on this earth. And when you can actually get it, I don't mean that lightly, Miko, because some people, when you really talk with them and they let everything down and they just talk about it, they're really not sure that they deserve to take up space and draw breath. They are kind of mincing around on the edges of life, hoping somebody will like them, but they haven't come into a fullness of themselves. They don't like themselves because many people are afraid to meet themselves. That's why they stay so busy, because they sat down and they were quiet and they said, how am I feeling about life? How am I feeling about myself? Do I like the way that I interacted with that person? They're kind of afraid of who they'd find if they looked in the mirror. So they stay very, very busy not doing that. And if you happen to be a person who multiply attracts hijackals, the most important thing is to get some help to look at what's up with that. You don't want to do that anymore. What do we need to undo and replace and create an opportunity for healthy relationships?
You know what, Dr. Roberta, I'm in so much resonance with everything that you just mentioned, because like for me too, for a really long time, for some reason, I just always had a difficult time saying no. Like I always was a people pleaser, always feel like I need to do what this other person wanted without really putting me in the picture, because I thought that was the way that they will love me back. So it was just really toxic and negative patterns that would just always show up. And it really takes an insane level of awareness to be able to look at myself and to reflect, like, what did I do that attracted this kind of partner? So is there a process that you support your clients to get clarity? Like, what do you recommend someone do when they realize that they are connecting with or attracting hijackers into their lives?
Well, first of all, I suggest they get help. And the
Mhm,
reason for that is that you've got a whole conversation going on within yourself.
mhm,
And that's kind of an endless loop. And if you go to someone who specializes in this, then they're
mhm,
going to ask you the very pertinent questions that will help you start to unravel the script that you want to release and
mhm,
to look at it. And they will look at it with you in a non-judgmental way, because we get our scripts from our early life in most cases. And so many people do not re-examine their life magically on their 21st birthday or their 18th birthday and say, oh, I got this piece and I don't want it anymore. I'll give it back to the parents or whatever. They actually um, just continue to go on in oblivion saying, well, this is me, this is my life. And you can recreate yourself at any time. So getting help is the fastest journey to that. I had someone yesterday say, well, I got out of the relationship. Now I'm going to get in another relationship. And I said, no, 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 don't do
Don't
that.
do
Because as she was asking me, what should I do? I said, you
that.
need to take a year. And I always say that one journey around the sun. If you have been in a hijackal relationship and you get out of it, or you're in it and you want to get out of it, it's still going to take a year. Know that you deserve to know who you are, how you function, what your values are, what your vision for your life is, what your true beliefs about the way the world works and people interact. You deserve to have a really good in-depth look to become very good friends with yourself and approve of the choices you're making. So the first thing is to get help. The second thing is to spend some time with yourself. Maybe you're not going to rush out and find someone like me in a hot minute, but spend some time with yourself. What just happened? Why do I feel that way? What did I hear that caused me to feel so badly? How did that person hook me into thinking that I would be a bad person if I didn't do what they wanted? Ask yourself some questions like that. I have a membership site, Miko, to help people with this. And as part of that, at the low level, the entry level, people get my 21 steps to building emotional savvy, empowering emotional savvy. The program's called Emerge. And what it does is that every second day it sends you an email with a worksheet. And so you can then do this process yourself, which if you do that, it will take you to a place where you're way ahead when you go to work with someone like me.
So it's like building up the foundation, because when we are in relationship, it's a very like a huge emotional tangle, and we need those skill sets in order for us to be able to manage when we are in pain, when all that comes up, right?
Sure, being in a relationship with a hijackal is downright crazy making. It'll cause you to second guess yourself and question your sanity. So when you pull back from it, maybe you get out of the turmoil and all of the swirling energy, but then you have that period of time where you have the opportunity to say, okay, I'm going to look at myself. I'm going to say, okay, I got into that.
Mm-hmm.
How did that happen? Not going to blame yourself, because if you knew better, you'd do better. Just, okay, what was that about? Let me take it apart bit by bit. What the Emerge program does is it helps you look at, where did I get this piece of my life? Where did I learn to put up with that? And identify the pieces so that when you do go to talk to somebody, you're already a little more self-aware.
Self-awareness, yeah. Ooh, okay, so step number one obviously is to seek the guidance and support from others, experts such as yourself, because like we can be just so in this loop, this cycle of this conversation going on in our minds and our hearts. So we need someone from the outside to be able to shed some insights on us. And then number two is just spend some time with ourselves. Don't jump into another relationship and then just repeat the cycles and the patterns all over again. So after we spend some time with ourselves, what's next?
Well, this isn't next, but this is a caveat.
Mm-hmm.
There is a tendency to go rushing off to our friends and do the "ain't it awful, he done me wrong, she done me wrong" story. And
Yeah.
our friends, maybe they can be healthily supportive,
Mm-hmm.
maybe they can be reflective, but our friends want to come in and say, oh yeah, that was awful, that's a terrible person, that's all that. They won't help you look at yourself. And so that's why 1 and 2 are so very important, that you look at yourself and you get help to look at yourself, because your friends may be overly desirous of supporting you and telling you how awful the other person is, but they don't have skills to help you not do it again, or to help you take apart the experience and learn from it.
Mm-hmm.
So when you get help, then know that it's going to take a while, because people like to think, oh, they can just, get a few clues and all. The actual thing is that I have learned from doing this for so many years that the average person listens to my podcast for 4 months before they become a client, because they're, oh, really? I didn't know that. Who thought that? They're in that kind of incredulous place where oh, there are other people who are experiencing this. Oh, this is a pattern. There are people who have these traits. It's not just me. It's not that I was a fool or they treated me badly or there's something awfully wrong with me that I deserve this treatment. No, this is a real thing, right? Hijackals are real. And if you understand it, then you can start to gain some perspective, and then you can learn what to look for. And, you can take off your rose-colored glasses, because when you're wearing rose-colored glasses, you can't see red flags, right?
I love your prop.
Well, it's the only one there is. But the thing is, we are wanting to see the best in other humans if we're not a hijacker.
Yeah.
And so in that, we lean in, and that's great. But if we don't know what to look for and we lean in, then eventually we tip and fall into the hijackal trap. I've written 2 books about this, about the hijackal trap. And then you're in the phase that I read about in one of the books, which is the gotcha factor. Once they've charmed you, they've cajoled you, they've demanded, they've pushed you, they've done whatever to do what they want. That's the gotcha factor. And hijackals love bomb you. They'll be that perfect person, that soulmate that you never thought you'd find. And then after they've got you, they're either moved in, you're pregnant, you're married, you've commingled your funds, you've demonstrated that you're willing to take care of them in some way. Then they start withdrawing their affection and they become more demanding. Then they start putting you down, belittling you, degrading you, wearing you down, tearing you down, putting you down. And it's a bit like that urban myth, you put the frogs in cold water and you keep heating it up and they don't notice that they're being cooked. Well, that's what happens with hijackals. And so it's very important to recognize that phenomenon. And if it happened to you, just say, oh, that happened to me. How do I look at myself and learn about myself, and then learn about hijackals, learn about the red flags, learn to say no, learn to set boundaries, and hold them. A big thing, Miko, is that people should not set a boundary until it's well thought out, because ultimatums are not boundaries. We give an ultimatum when we're angry. You ever do that again, I'm out of here. If you say that and you don't get out of there, no one's going to believe you again. A boundary is absolutely immovable, impenetrable, impermeable. So they have to be well thought out, and start small. Don't put up global boundaries, I remember I took care of my mother when she was ill and dying, and she was a supreme hijackal, poor woman, very sad. And she said to me, go downstairs and get the bucket. And I didn't say anything. So she called my name and said, go downstairs and get the bucket. And I didn't say anything. So she said, are you listening to me? And she said it again. And I said, Mom, nobody gives me orders. That's all I said, just quietly, just nobody gives me orders. And you could see all this mental activity, that all of the mental gymnastics she was going through. And then she said, go downstairs and get the bucket, please. And I went and got the bucket. Now, a boundary for me is nobody gives me orders, okay? I just don't respond to it. If you're going to give me an order, I'm going to wait until you make a request. you know, and if you don't have the wisdom to make a request, then you just won't get whatever it is you wanted. It's just not going to happen. But you have to think that through. Now, I was 45 years old at the time, so, a lot of things have changed since then. I've gained some wisdom, I hope. But, that's a prime example, a very clear example of I had thought that through. Like, I don't be around people like my mother. She gives me orders. I don't take them, which brings up the point that when you are individuating, that's what we call it in psychology, when you are coming of age, you're leaving home, you're developing who you are, that's the time to be able to say, okay, in this emerging self, what are my boundaries? What's okay with me? And just start that inquiry as young as possible, because you need to know what your boundaries are. Name calling, to me, I don't have a boundary that, has any time in that. I'll just say, I'd be happy to talk with you when there's no name calling involved. And I do that on social media. I mean, if people are calling each other's names, they don't usually call me anything, but and they'll say, well, what do you think? I'll say, I don't going to be part of this conversation as long as there's name calling. Know what your boundaries are, and know why they are, and then be willing to express them, and then notice if people respect them. And if they do not, then repeat the boundary with a consequence that you 146% will enforce. Never give a consequence that is not going to happen. I've trained a lot of parents. That's true when you're parenting. Never say something to your child that is not going to happen. Be very careful. You do that again, and how many people have grounded their kids and then not stayed home with them to make sure they were grounded?
That doesn't work.
It doesn't work. No.
Yeah, that's so funny because I used to be a preschool teacher before, like a couple of years ago, and I definitely know what you mean. The little ones, they pay attention. If you don't follow through with your words, they know that it's not really the boundary, it's not there. But Dr. Roberta, I just love how much this entire conversation, the focus is really on us. It's like you never at one point mention like, blaming the other person, blaming the hijacker. Like really, it's the entire focus is just on us. What can we do? How can we set those boundaries? How can we have a higher level of self-awareness? And that is so powerful because like exactly like you said, when things doesn't work in a relationship, we tend to go to our friends, our families, and then they would just help us focus all of the faults on the other person, and we never learn from that. That's so common. So Dr. Roberta, like this process, you mentioned it takes about a year for us to really spend time with ourselves. Is this going to be like an everlasting process? Are we, even if we do the work, do we sometimes still catch ourselves like maybe still going?
Sure. Absolutely. You have, what I've learned, Miko, is that the tentacles that are around the tiniest and deepest part of ourselves that come from the trauma of being raised by a hijackal or with one, they keep surfacing. Now you catch them very quickly after you've done the work, but you go, oh, like, oh, there it goes again. Like, maybe what you've learned about yourself is that you don't try things because you have a fear of rejection. Okay, maybe you have that big aha that, I really stopped myself because I'm afraid somebody might not like what I do. And you begin to ask yourself, well, would it be the end of the world if one person didn't approve of what I'm doing? And you begin to think that through and work it through, feel it through, and you come to maybe the conclusion that no, I only care about the opinions of people I value. I only care about people that I actually ask for their opinion or whatever is right for you.
Yeah.
And so then you might catch yourself and someone says, well, why don't you throw your hat in the ring for that job? And, that old piece of you goes, oh, no, because I'm afraid of rejection. But in that moment, you catch yourself and say, I could do that. I don't have to have a fear of rejection.
Mm-hmm.
So it doesn't become automatic in every case, but it becomes something that you have reprogrammed yourself to say, I've thought this through, and this is the behavioral or thought choice that I'm going to make.
Wow. And this is my personal belief too. Like all of my most biggest transformations always came out as a result of a heartbreak after a relationship didn't work out. And I always do believe that our biggest like self-awareness really happens after a relationship ended. And I can really see, and I hope our listeners will really be able to find the connection between our entire conversation today, because by doing this inner work, by increasing our self-awareness, looking at those patterns that are toxic in us, that could really translate into all other aspects of our lives, like business, it doesn't matter, our relationship with our bodies, like all of that stuff. So Dr. Rhoberta, when you work with your clients, how do you see like their transformation start to show up when they do this work with you, when they seek help and spend time with themselves? What kind of powerful transformations show up?
Well, they relax some,
Mm-hmm.
they smile more, they feel more confident, they
Yeah.
become more willing to trust and love again.
Mm-hmm.
But they understand what the boundaries are to loving and trusting. They know how to express those boundaries and how to hold those boundaries. And they become their best friend, like, I got you. I understand what to do. I had one client who had been married to 3 hijackals in a row, and each one was worse. So when you mentioned, getting help, that's a gift you give yourself to say, I don't want to spend any more time in this dysfunctional cycle. If I
Mm-hmm.
shortcut the journey by getting some help, that will make a difference.
Yeah.
And that those are the differences that I see. And the ability to see red flags very, very quickly is also important. And that they feel confident that they can go out in the world. Little caveat, Miko. There are
Mm-hmm.
people who get out of a dysfunctional relationship, and by the day the door closes behind the person who was leaving,
Mm-hmm.
they are already thinking about, well, I'll go out and find somebody to love me again. No, 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 don't do that. Do not move on. You are going to attract the same thing again, and you're going to go through the same thing again in 90% of the cases. Occasionally something wonderful will happen. I don't deny that. But are you willing to take a 10% chance? Then go buy a lottery ticket. You know, do what's in your best interest. Develop yourself, know yourself, um, be a demonstration of your values. Be going in the direction of the dreams that you have, the vision of the world that you want to live in, the vision of how you'd like to live. Examine your beliefs. What do I think about relationships? What do I think about self-esteem? What do I think about um, money? One of the things that happens with couples all the time, and I wish that everybody in the world could come and talk to me before they ever commit to another human being, but that's not likely to happen because they're all starry-eyed and in love, thanks to the fact we're biologically have programmed to do that. But the fact is that everybody is not for us, and we need to be able to know who we are so we know we can attract and why and how. Many times people ask me, what should I put in my online dating profile? And they're absolutely horrified when I say to them, I'll look at their thing, and what they've written is basically written to try and please somebody else. Like, you'll really like me if you read this. And I say, no, this is no good at all. You need to tell people what will please you, who you are looking for. Not,
Mm-hmm.
not, oh, I am this wonderful person that you'll love. No, here's me. This is what I'm up to. Be as honest as possible. Get rid of the majority of the people who might be attracted to your picture and never read the words. And then be very discerning,
Mm-hmm.
very discerning. But first of all, you have to know yourself in order to have that level of discernment.
Oh, this is so good. I mean, I personally haven't used a dating website in a long time, but that is so true. I remember those days back when I was on Tinder, and it's always about like, how can I make myself like the most amazing so that the other person can like me? But that was like a totally different way of presenting us. We are declaring like, this is who we are, this is what our values are, and my desires matter. And then whoever gets attracted to us will be the person. But I never look at it that way. Oh my gosh, this is fun and this is so exciting. But exactly what you mentioned, Dr. Rhoberta, we have to do the inner work first in order to get to know ourselves before we can have that level of discernment. This has been such a fun interview. I really enjoyed this. And Dr. Rhoberta, obviously this is a process that our listeners, like, they need to, this interview alone has been powerful in the sense of like increasing our awareness, but the real work happens after this interview. So they can get connected with you, they can continue to dive deeper. So where can they find you and stay connected with you?
Well, it's very simple. Go to my website, forrelationshiphelp.com, FOR relationship, HELP.com. You'll find everything there. You'll find links to my podcast, links to my YouTube channel, lots and lots of articles, lots of blogs, lots of videos, all kinds of things that will help you. And if you're relating to the hijackal whole idea that we've been talking about and you're just, oh, I need to know more about that, definitely listen to the podcast. You'll find it at saveyoursanitypodcast.com.
Is that what it's called? Your
Mm-hmm.
podcast? Oh, that's so
Save Your
exciting.
Sanity. Uh-huh.
Save your sanity. Oh, okay. All right.
But
So I will.
you find it at saveyoursanitypodcast.com.
Okay, got it. And Dr. Roberta, did you have any like free gift or exercise that our listeners can utilize to further deepen this work?
Absolutely. Certainly I invite people to become a member at the site, but the free gift is an ebook called How to Spot a Hijackal. And you'll find that at hijackals.com. So you spell that hijack, ALS.com, and you can get that free ebook and read it and say, oh, yes, I just encountered a hijackal. Or maybe I was raised by one.
Mm-hmm. What about us being one? Is that something that show up too?
No. First of all, a hijackal would never read the book except to manipulate someone else and use my words to make somebody else wrong. Always remember that hijackals believe that they are the smartest person in every room and that all water runs downhill from them. So they are perfect. They never make a mistake. They're not responsible. They're not accountable. Everything is your fault. So no, they won't be reading the book.
Got it. Makes total sense. So everyone, I will include all of Dr. Roberta's links in the same email that this went out to. So just go back, stay connected with her, and also let us know what your biggest takeaways were from this interview. We would love to hear from you, and also let us know in the Facebook group as well. And Dr. Roberta, I want to say a big thank you on behalf of my listeners for being on here today and share some powerful insights. Before we finish this off, do you have any last words you would like to share?
I do. I want to share my formula that will really shortcut your journey. And the formula is ABB. And that stands for always believe behavior. Hijackals want you to believe their words. You must always believe their behavior.
Oh, that's a short and sweet one and super powerful. Always believe behaviors. Don't just take others' words for it. Okay, everyone, I hope you enjoyed this episode. I will see you tomorrow for another one. And thank you, Dr. Roberta.
Thank you, Miko.